This is like high tech for me. I still use a paper calendar, and I don't know how to turn my phone on and off. And yeah, so this is all really new. And here I am talking about social media and gaming, which I do kind of not really know how to play a game, but I do know how to use social media a little bit. In 1998, we started keeping stats. So I've been with the Cache County Attorney's Office. On Monday, I was like, oh my gosh, it's my anniversary. I forgot. And everybody in my office was like, how long have you been married? No, not that anniversary. I've been with the Cache County Attorney's Office 23 years. So just to let you know, we started the Victim Services Program. There were two of us that worked part-time, like 10 hours a week, I think. And we were in this old dilapidated building with our county attorney, Scott Wyatt, at the time, and a couple of attorneys and a couple of legal assistants. And you had to go up these rickety stairs, and there was a little tiny kitchen with a refrigerator in it and a card table with a folding chair. And if you wanted to get into the refrigerator, we had to get out of the folding chair, fold the chair up, and then you could get into the refrigerator. So we've kind of moved up in life now. We have a pretty significant staff at the county attorney's office. We have 6 victim advocates, 2 prosecutors, and 2 investigators. So our investigators are actually split now. We have an investigator that does primarily domestic violence, housed at the sheriff's office, and one out of our office that does sexual assaults and any other type of high-profile crime. And so we're continuing to move on, and I'm thinking we're going to have another victim advocate or so that will be housed primarily at the sheriff's office because crime is increasing so much in our valley. But in 1998, we started keeping stats of any type of crime associated with substance abuse. And then in 2001, we saw a significant rise in crime, any type of crime, thefts, burglaries, sexual assaults, domestic violence associated with pornography. So we started keeping stats on pornography involved in criminal cases as well. And then in 2015, we started noticing, especially in our domestic violence cases, we started noticing gaming, social media as a factor. Now, we're not going to sit here and say that those things cause domestic violence, but they're a factor in the cases. So we started keeping those stats. So a little bit about the Pew Research study, and I'll just gloss over these for you. The Pew Research Foundation did a study about a year ago, and they found that a significant number of us are connected electronically. The majority of youth have a smartphone now. Most youth that are males are playing games, gaming daily. We have people that are connected constantly to their phones. Now, I can tell you that that's not the case in my life. My kids are always complaining. They have the phone numbers of several detectives and people in my office to get a hold of me because I'm notorious for losing my phone, forgetting my phone. So, but for the majority of people out there, we have a lot of people that are hooked to a phone or the internet constantly. So what is media addiction? Media addiction is basically an impulse control disorder, and it's basically the excessive use of that media or an impairment or distress or poor functioning that's related to that media or gaming. It's basically a preoccupation with gaming. There is one evaluation method that came out a few years ago. I think there's a typo in this. It's supposed to say 2008, not 1998. But basically, if you're wondering if somebody in your life is addicted to a gaming device or social media, you can look at some of these questions. It was interesting. I talked to a neighbor the other day, and she had told me that her 15-year-old daughter was constantly connected. And they decided to say, you know what, it's summer, we want you to take a break. And the daughter went through physical withdrawals for 2 days over her phone. She was a mess. She was crying. She was angry. She would be irritable. She couldn't focus, all because she didn't have her phone with her. So there are some questions here. There are a number of evaluation methods online. But we know that now about 1 in 8 Americans suffers from some sort of media or gaming addiction. That's a lot that we're seeing affecting our families. Now, one of the things that I didn't put in this slide because I have no brain for the last couple of weeks, based on a case that we've been dealing with, but about a month ago, Dane Murray, who's a prosecutor in my office, he and I went to the Crimes Against Women conference in Dallas, Texas. And I'd like to point this out. There's a facet of it with domestic violence, but one of the things that Baylor University researchers are finding is that infants are not bonding with their parents. Now, it may be just a parent that's not got an addiction to alcohol or to drugs, or maybe that person thinks that they're a really good parent, but because we are seeing an increase of parents connected to a social media device or a gaming device, they're not making the eye contact with an infant. And they're not making the talking with an infant. And what we're finding is that infants are not attaching to parents. And that's leading to an increase of depression and addiction and a lot of social issues later on in life. And I found that fascinating that Baylor researchers are finding this research out now about how infants are not attaching. And they gave the scenario of a child crying. They said, let's say it's a 5-month-old baby and that baby's crying. But mom is connected to Facebook. Mom may come over and pet the baby, or pick the baby up, but not really make any eye contact. And so some of the basic needs of that baby are being met, but others are not. And if the baby's basic needs are not met, stress chemicals start to kick in. And it's fascinating research out there about where we are with technology and infants and what we're starting to see with children as they grow older that have not been able to attach to a parent. So I thought about that when we look at an evaluation method. If you're a parent and you have little children and you're not talking to them and making eye contact or touching them, that can lead to some problems later on. So I wanted to touch on violent video games and aggression. And I'm not going to sit here and say that if you play violent video games, you're going to be aggressive. I'm not going to say that. But what I am going to say is the research out there shows that there's an emotional callousness, a lack of remorse, there's social isolation, poor performances in school. I would like to talk about one case, and that is the case of Coulter Peterson and Jason Decker. When we went in, this is the case where Desiree Turner was lured to a canal and shot in the back of the head. When we went in with the search warrant to get some of the items in Coulter's bedroom, there were stacks of violent video games. He had a large screen TV with stacks of violent video games. And when we did some interviewing with him, we found that he spent the majority of his day, and so did Jason, playing violent video games. I'll never forget when we were watching the interview, I was with our county attorney, James Swink, at the time, and we were watching his interview with a detective in a different room. We were in one room over watching on a camera. And the detective Groves left the room for a few minutes. And here we're talking about a girl that we didn't know if she was going to live. We expected she would die that day. This is the first day she's been found. And I'll never forget the defendant taking a water bottle and flipping it up in the air and catching it over and over. Like, he didn't even care. We were under the impression she was going to die and had told him that. And here he is, just flipping a water bottle, and then the other defendant, Jason, is drawing and doodling. There was a lack of remorse and a lack of empathy for a young woman who was on her deathbed. And I couldn't help but wonder if some of these games had led to this type of behavior. In our conversations, we felt that was the case. So when we talk about gaming and social media, there's a lot of bullying that goes on in those types of cases. For gaming, we have a lot of people that will be threatened. They will be, their information will be shared. One of the things that we're seeing a lot of now is people are connecting through online gaming sources, and then somebody will say, hey, can you send me a picture? Can you send me a picture of this? And pretty soon we start having sexually explicit pictures sent back and forth. And one of the things that we've seen a couple of times now, even in Cache Valley, is those sexually explicit pictures, somebody will say, I'm going to release them to your family. I'm going to share them with everybody at school. One of the things, and so we're starting to see that with social media and gaming, where people will connect that way. And when we think of social media, I think of Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. But there are so many other other social media sites out there. Snapchat seems to be a big one. I know we've got DCFS investigators here that will tell you also. Every year in August, we have kids that don't want to go back to school in this valley because they've taken a shot of their boob or something and sent it to somebody, and then it gets shared with everybody through Snapchat. So that's a social media form of bullying. Somebody will break up with a boyfriend or a girlfriend, and pretty soon everybody else has seen the pictures. And that happens in our own valley here. With social media also, we find a lot of stalking, and we find like males will post pornographic pictures. And that's not just for youth. We've had a number of cases of adults where a boyfriend and girlfriend or a husband and wife will split up, and then pretty soon pictures are being released to everybody's family members. We had a case not too long ago where a long-term relationships ended, and the defendant sent all of these pictures to this woman's family, her children, her sisters, her neighbors. Everybody got pictures of her that she had sent, intimate pictures she had sent. And so that is a lot of bullying that we're seeing here, even in Cache Valley. So how does media and gaming hurt relationships? I kind of wanted to spend some time on this because this is what we're seeing in a lot of cases. So just the Cache County Attorney's Office, we do the prosecution for Nibley, Hiram, Logan City, and although we don't prosecute for North Park, we're also as advocates involved in those cases. And so the domestic violence cases that we see over, let's say on Monday, I review all of the cases over the weekend that have come through, and then on Fridays, I review the cases from the week, that prior week. And we're seeing a lot of cases where gaming and social media are causing a lot of problems with domestic violence. So I'd like to walk you through a typical case that I see in Cache Valley. Somebody will go to work all day and they work, and then they come home and they sit on the couch and they begin to game. Or they get on their computer and they start to look at social media. And even though there are chores, homework, there's other responsibilities, there's dinner needs to be done, we have people that are sitting and not participating as being a parent, and then the fight begins. So the fights begin, couples start fighting over, hey, I need you to put the game down, hey, can you put this game down, hey, I need you to get off Facebook because we've got to get the kids to bed. And what we're finding is then ends up somebody will walk over. I'll just tell you about one case not too long ago where a wife walked over and turned the TV off because her husband had been at work all day. He came home, got in front of a game, and was in the family room with a game. He's yelling at the kids, but she finally, after about 6 hours of him playing the game, walked over and turned the TV off. And then he took his remote and threw it at her. We have a lot of these types of cases going on where children are yelled at, get out of the way, I'm trying to play a game, I'm trying to do this. And some of those multimedia interactive games, you've got a lot of equipment that you may be using, headphones, you may be using different remotes, and kids get in the way. And we're seeing kids that are being emotionally abused because they have no interaction with the parent. The family becomes they draw farther apart, and the family becomes very isolated with each other. And it was amazing to me to find out how many blogs and websites there are for people living in this situation. So not too long ago, I talked to a young woman who her story broke my heart. She had been suicidal, and I want to say she was in a high school here. She was suicidal. She felt like she came from a decent home, but she had no interaction with her father. And the week she decided to commit suicide was the week she had kept track every day of how much time her father spent with her and how much he talked to her. Anybody want to take a guess as to how many words were said to her in a full week from a Sunday to the following Saturday night? How many words do you think would have been said to her? They were all somewhat not, I mean, they were nice. How many words? Anybody want to take a guess?
I'll guess 20.
20? Anybody else? 38 words. It was basically, hope you have a good day tomorrow, something like that, each day. She said, my father comes home from work after working all day. He's gone in the morning before I get up. And she said, he comes home and he sits at the kitchen table and he plays on his game. And then pretty soon he goes into another room and there's no interaction with our family. And I thought, oh my gosh. So we started to provide some services to that family because this is a typical example of what we're seeing. There's loneliness, there's depression, there's isolation, and there's confusion in the family. And kids are growing up with this. So although in this case the father was not physically abusive or is not physically abusive, she feels like she's being abused because she has no interaction with a father. And I found that really interesting when we talked to her about that. She finally reached out to a friend, and the friend contacted law enforcement. And it happened to be my night out with law enforcement that night. And so we responded out to this young woman's house. And then in the past year, I have had that same scenario repeated over and over and over. And we're seeing it's not so much domestic violence that we think of. The average person is going to think domestic violence is hitting, shoving, physical violence. But this young woman is living in a different type of emotional abuse. Father and mother are good, however, there's just no communication. And that scenario has been repeated so many times throughout our valley. I don't know if it'll go back to that. Shoot, hang on. There. Okay, so I thought it was interesting. The average gamer in the United States is 35 years old. 35. And I'm thinking, oh, how do you have time to game? How do I have time? 35 years old. Usually a 35-year-old is usually working. They may be in a relationship, they may be in and out of relationships, but we tend to think of gamers as our youth, our teenagers that are maybe not going to school or struggling in school, or our young adults. But I found that very interesting that the average gamer is 35 years old. And, okay, wait. Hang on. This is me being not technically, I don't know what to do. Okay, I'm going to go there. Okay, so I went through about a year and a half ago, I started keeping comments from people in my interviews. When I go out with law enforcement and I am on scene, I started kind of making notes of things. So I'd like to share some of these comments with you. The first one is, the reality is I'm living in the same circle of shame and madness as someone married to an alcoholic. If we have to attend social events or have obligatory family time, like birthdays or outings, and they run too long, my husband becomes irritable and anxious, desperate to return to the battlefield. I am constantly making excuses for why he drove separately and is leaving early, or more commonly, why he didn't show up at all. In that situation, I can tell you that he had to go to a piano recital. And it didn't end well because the police were called eventually, because he was violent that night when the mom finally said, I'm done with this. You had to go to a piano recital and you can't even wait. And she told me that here's her daughter, her young daughter, learning to play the piano, and they have a recital. But Dad, it was on a Saturday afternoon, and Dad had been gaming all day, and then, oh my gosh, I've got to go to this stupid piano recital, in his words. And so he is in a pair of sweats and t-shirt. And the poor family is totally embarrassed that the dad is coming in sweats and a t-shirt to a piano recital, and as soon as it was over, he was out of there. It was not a, hey, great job, daughter, anything like that. And when the wife got home, she basically said, "This is ridiculous. You have a daughter that's learning to play the piano and you can't take 2 seconds away from it." And the fight was on. And law enforcement was called. And I thought, oh my gosh, a piano recital. You can't give up 30 minutes of gaming for a piano recital. And it led to domestic violence. My time at home includes all the household duties. I am solely responsible for the cooking, cleaning, bath time, bedtime, boo-boo kissing, cuddling, and correcting that comes from having children. All the while, cannons and gunfire are blasting from my basement. When my children were younger, I was uncomfortable leaving the house because I would return to find them unsupervised, while my husband, wearing gaming headphones, was enthralled with a mission. I have prayed, I have begged, I have bargained. We have been to counselors and ecclesiastical leaders. My circumstances remain unchanged. Again, this is a comment made after a domestic violence incident in this valley. And I don't even know what to say to this poor woman. Her situation is today still unchanged. Husband is still involved with his gaming and the kids are growing up. And so at this point, there's been it's been minor. It's a B misdemeanor. We did a plea in abeyance. And actually what we started doing about a year and a half ago is we started including in our what's called a plea in abeyance, we started including gaming addiction counseling. So when somebody's charged with a crime, for example, a domestic violence incident where there's pushing, shoving, slapping, that's what's called a B, that would be a B misdemeanor. That's the equivalent of a B misdemeanor. And in this state, we're probably not going to put somebody in jail for any length of time on a B misdemeanor. So we try to, our purpose of the county attorney's office is not to split a family up. Our approach is basically if a family wants to try to stay together, we'll do whatever we can to help them. And so some of the things that we look at is we'll say, well, what are some of the issues affecting your family? If there's a drug problem, we'll put them in drug counseling. If there's an alcohol problem, we'll ask that they go to alcohol counseling. If they have family or financial issues, we'll refer them to the USU Family Life Center for financial counseling. But one of the things that we added about a year and a half ago was gaming addictions. Unfortunately, we don't have enough therapists in this valley that are familiar enough with gaming addiction. And so it's basically, they go to therapists and I'm not sure if it's working because some of these same people we see back through the system a year or so later. So that's one of the comments that we received. One defendant said, I was already distant from my family and was separating myself from reality. All I did was work, game, eat, and sleep. I honestly couldn't tell you what my kids' lives were like. I am left with regret of missing out on the most memorable times, and there is, of course, no way to get it back. I had one defendant tell me out of North Logan Justice Court, a young guy, he had been arrested 4 times in 6 months for domestic violence. He clearly had some issues. One of them was gaming. He was there when his daughter was born, but he was off in a chair. He was playing a game in the hospital room while his wife was giving birth. And yes, he was there, but he wasn't there. He talked about how they went on a family vacation with her family, and they were doing a river rafting trip, and he missed the river rafting trip. He said he didn't feel good, but what he was involved with was a mission in his Call of Duty game, and he missed a river. I mean, he was there, and he couldn't go out of the hotel room because he was in the middle of a game. So he just feigned being sick, and I just thought, oh my gosh, how sad that is that we have people that are living this way. A 2013 BYU study indicates that 75% of spouses of gamers say they wish their spouse would put more effort into their marriage and less into video games and into social media as well. What we've seen, and I don't want to target men, but it turns out to be we have more of our domestic violence. Women perpetrators are more involved with social media, and our male perpetrators are more gaming. So I want to make that clear that this we're seeing women as well that are abusing children, abusing spouses. We had a case not too long ago where a woman had been on her social media sites. She was I think she blogs, and I don't know how to do Pinterest, but she does Pinterest, and and the kids are hungry, and dad gets mad, and she turns and throws something at him. So that tends to be, so I want to make sure that everybody's clear that we're seeing both male and female perpetrators in this, that it's not just a one-sided thing. However, the police reports that I review, the women tend to be involved more with social media and the men more involved in gaming. So, anybody have any comments about this? It's kind of depressing, isn't it? Wait, what? It's really sad. It's really sad. And coupled with what I saw in Dallas at that conference, this makes me really sad for children growing up today in homes.
I have a question.
Yes?
Are you familiar with a specific therapy modality that should be used to treat this, as opposed to just a general substance?
Like CBT?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think CBT works the best. Cognitive behavioral therapy works the best, is what we've been told. And I'm hoping that's what people are using. But we don't have a lot of therapists that are specifically trained on gaming or social media because it's so new. Yes?
Is this, because I think a lot of the times we go, oh, this is another demographic, or this is across all demographics.
It is.
Which I think would be really shocking for a lot of people.
I can tell you that I was not aware of the beautiful big homes in Millville up on the hill until the last year and a half when we started doing on-scene response. And so it doesn't matter. We've got them in apartments as well as big mini mansions up on the hill. And we're seeing a lot of that. It really isn't, it crosses every socioeconomic line. We have people that are extremely wealthy that are gamers or addicted to media, and we have extremely poor people and everything in between. Yes?
Yeah, I was just thinking of Dr. Red's video this morning, the serve and return, along with your comments, because I know research has found, like just when the mother wasn't paying attention to her baby, that same exact thing happens when a parent is on a screen. And in fact, the medical community has found that children's vision is not being developed as well. It's just all related, and yeah.
They showed an ad, and I can't remember who did the ad. They showed an ad at the Crimes Against Women conference, and it literally shows mom on a phone and dad with a game, and the child saying in the middle, "I wish I was a device." And it's an ad being put out by somebody, but I was in a car accident and just had a corneal transplant and couldn't see before, but I could see the gist of it, but I just couldn't see who did it. But I thought that was really telling for our community. Any other questions or comments? The stories that we hear are heartbreaking. I just go home. So the way we do it with the county attorney's office is we now have a victim advocate out with patrol just about every day. With the sheriff's office, we do a lot of on-scene response of every type of crime. Wherever a patrol officer's going, that's where we're going. And we also respond to all of the different agencies. So just because I ride with the sheriff's office doesn't mean I only stick with county cases. What they do is they say, I've got the victim advocate with me. It goes on to 911 dispatch, and it could be Smithfield or North Park or Logan or USUPD that needs a victim advocate. And so we'll respond to all types of cases, but this is what we're seeing a lot of disputes because of this. And it may not even be to the level where we have an arrest. A lot of times we're just having a dispute or a family disagreement, and we respond, and there hasn't been like anything done to where we can make an arrest, because we have a mandatory arrest policy in this state. But we still are having disagreements and fights. And a lot of times we're seeing this over this type of thing. And I didn't even bring into it the number of kids that we're seeing that are highly addicted to media and can't put them down to go to school, can't put them down to go to sleep. They're constantly glued. And we actually, I can tell you that with Dez's shooting, I went in to tell the parents that their son was being arrested because he had shot, and we didn't know at that time if Dez was going to live. So we basically said, it's an attempted murder case at this time. And I will never forget what Mr. Peterson said. His first comment out of his mouth was, "Is this because we took his phone away?" And I was like, oh my gosh. I mean, that's literally what they thought. We took his phone away, and he goes out and shoots and tries to kill somebody. So it was really interesting to hear that comment from him, with the fact that they had taken his phone away, and they really believed that led to what he did. So we just are seeing this in a lot of families. So there was a study done by Pew, and they interviewed almost 11,000 people. 62% of the 11,000 basically had stayed up all night gaming. We have people that try to go to work every day after playing a game all night or being online all night. 26% of the people said they spend at least 40 hours connected, 40 hours a week. And I'm thinking, oh my heavens, that's like a work week for us. 40 hours a week. 29% have lost family and friends, 24% have skipped work or school, and 90% say they're addicted. Out of almost 11,000 people, 90% say they're addicted to media. So what's affected? I kind of wanted to go through this a little bit and talk with you about it. So family, what happens to a family when somebody's gaming or spending their time on social media? They feel neglected. The rest of the family feels neglected. Kind of like that young girl that told me, my dad has spoken to me 38 words in this whole week. And they feel very neglected. We have kids that are really struggling in our community today because they don't have much time with a family member, with a parent. They feel like this is a priority. Friends feel like they're being ignored. There are a lot of times we have people that'll say, I've lost some of my friends because I'm involved with this and that's become my life. Work and school are affected. We have a young man that we just sent to jail on a sexual abuse case, but he was really addicted to gaming, and he was flunking every single class. And we started looking at that at Logan Justice Court not too long ago, some of our different cases of youth that stay up all night and then game, and then try to go to school the next day and become coherent enough to carry on. University classes are hard enough. I just can't imagine trying to stay up all night and then trying to go to school the next day. Physical health, we have a lot of people. I don't know if you've seen the research out there on obesity, that we're seeing kids that are really young. I don't know, Dr. Red, if you can comment on that, but we're seeing more and more youth that are struggling with weight issues because they're just sitting. I didn't know if you wanted to...
Yeah, I think, our environment nowadays is kind of messed up. If you think about it, if you compare it to what our ancestors 200 years ago or 500 years ago used to do, we didn't have anything to distract us like this. We basically had to be physically active to survive. Mm-hmm. And we spent all our time interacting with other people all day long, pretty much. And whether it was at work, at school, or whatever it was doing, and we kind of lived, we kind of interacted a lot with other people. I just think this is just yet another problem where we're not having interactions with each other on a regular daily basis. And all this stuff you're talking about, it's just like hitting me over the head. I've got a headache right now. It's not really, but I just feel like it's the physical health is just. For me, the obesity problem is just the tip of the iceberg as far as the actual psychological and social issues that come along with the lack of social interaction between human beings. The obesity is a problem. I think it's really small compared to everything else you're talking about. That's just my gut impression.
Right, yeah, I agree. And I know on the mental health issues, we do have people they have poor eating habits and they have obesity problems, but mental health, one of the things that I went to, one of the breakout sessions at this Crimes Against Women conference was on pornography and the changes in pornography that are coming up. And that it was interesting because they showed us, I don't know how many of you are familiar with Fortnite. I don't know anything about Fortnite, but I know that it is the fastest and biggest game for kids between the ages of 10 and 17. But Fortnite is owned by Pornhub. And you can actually, go figure. It's owned by Pornhub, and there are sometimes little flashes. We watched this in Dallas where a little flash will come up, get a free week subscription to Pornhub. And of course you can check a box that says you're 18 if you're 12, but they don't care. But I thought that was rather interesting because mental health issues coming out of technology are exactly what Dr. Red said. They are really crippling our society. We are meant to be social creatures. We are meant to interact with each other, to talk, to touch, to be involved with each other's lives, and yet we are becoming more and more distant from each other due to technology. We hear the stories. In fact, I saw my own daughter one time do this, and she was sitting in a room and she texted my other daughter, and I was like, well, excuse me, what did you just do? You just speak. We don't do that. I am known to be a very strict parent, and in fact, it's really interesting. My older two children, I have a son that just graduated from USU and he in electrical engineering, and he's in Taiwan working. And I have a daughter that is finishing up here and headed to medical school, and she's actually deployed to the Middle East right now. Neither of them have any social media and no gaming. I was the mean parent that didn't ever allow that in my home. Like, everybody had gaming devices except for me. We didn't, because I was just like, I don't know anything about them, so we're not having them. And so I look at my older two kids, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, you two are the weirdest kids, because no, you don't even... My son, I told him, you know what, if you want to go on a date, you should call a girl. You should call her up. So he did. And the girl's like, why are you calling me? Why don't you just Snapchat me? And I was just like, oh my gosh, that's the weirdest thing. So I think social media and gaming, most people, it's just an everyday part of their lives. And I think that we'll get to it in a minute about talking about how to control that and how to kind of set some parameters. But appearance, we're hearing stories of people that sit and game for days. And we have people that die because their bodies just conk out, or that their children are found starving or in filthy diapers because they're in front of a device. So we hear about that. And then we hear about the finances. Games are supposedly free, but a lot of it is not. And there's a lot of financial issues that go with gaming and social media. So this is about League of Legends. It's free, but it's not really free. So I wanted to tell you a little bit about one case that we started. This is one of the reasons why we started keeping track of certain things. We found there was a young man there was a summer where we had a number of houses broken into, and there were several cases going on. We had a couple of young men that were breaking into homes to steal drugs, and another person was arrested and prosecuted for breaking into homes, stealing things, and then selling them. And what he would do is he was playing this game called League of Legends. I don't really know anything about it, but apparently you can buy certain things, and he needed money. He was 18 years old. It had started when he was 17. And so he's breaking into homes to steal things so he could pawn them so he could pay for his League of Legends game. Because apparently you have to buy weapons or time, I don't know. He was buying things. And it was thousands of dollars that he had spent. And we see that. We see youth breaking into homes, young, not just for drugs, that tends to be the big reason, but we see them breaking in to steal things to game. So that they can afford their gaming habits. Because although a lot of us think they're free, you can play apparently a free version, or you can buy time and weapons and this and that for your life. So let's talk. We've got about 8 minutes left. I wanted to talk about some suggestions for change, because like Dr. Red said, this is something that I'm extremely concerned about. It is affecting families all over our valley, and it doesn't matter what your zip code is. So Dr. Mark Burton said, take time to connect with your family every day for at least 30 minutes before ever taking any time to play video games or getting on social media. The goal is to let your family know that they, not the video game or social media, are your number one priority. I have that on a paper that I give to people when I go to on-scene responses and we're not doing an arrest. So I give them information about the family place, for example, or CAPSA, or USU Family Life, but I also give this to them, trying to get people to say, okay, when I walk in the door, I'm going to spend 30 minutes with my family before I go do anything else. It's kind of like that. I was raised a lot by my grandparents who had lived through the Depression, and so it was always work, 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 and then if there's time to play, you can play. So it's kind of like you need to spend time with your family, and then you have time for yourself later. And I just think that's a really good idea. For me, that includes my dogs. I have to spend at least 30 minutes with my puppy. I have a new puppy that's 17 weeks old, and she's the cutest little thing in the whole world. And so I have to spend at least 30 minutes on a walk with her, even though she's not very well behaved. If you were walking through Hiram and you saw a woman trying to get all tangled last night, my husband walked behind me laughing the entire time. I have a German Shepherd, and I have a 6-pound little rat thing, and then this new puppy that's a pit bull, 17-week-old puppy. And my husband laughed at me the whole way because he was just like, this is too funny. The leashes are everywhere. But I have to spend 30 minutes a day with my puppy. And that makes just me feel so much better. And it's really good during the summer if you want to walk to take your kids and your puppies with you. Discuss how much time family members should spend on social media or gaming, and then stick to those limits. I don't know what an appropriate amount of time is for gaming because, like I said, I don't have gaming devices and I never have. So I don't know what would be an appropriate time. But I think the message to families is we need to have an appropriate time. Now, the American Association of Pediatrics has said children under 2 should have no screen time whatsoever, and then a little bit as time goes on, as kids get a little older. But remember, they're getting social media, or they're getting media devices in school as well. So you may want to take that into consideration. But that same thing should apply to parents as well. If you're a parent and you're spending a lot of time coming home and looking at Facebook or Pinterest or surfing the net, you may want to take a step back and review the amount of time. And then there are apps. My daughter told me there's an app out there that will track how much time you spend on different sites. Anybody know what that app is? I don't know. Yes?
Disney Circle.
Disney Circle?
Something that we've implemented in my home. Yes, it shows hours on each different site, hours on the internet, and you can set up different devices for different individuals so you know what each individual is doing.
Okay, that's okay. Disney Circle. Okay. Create tech-free zones in your home. For us, there is no phone allowed in my kitchen. If you walk into the kitchen with a phone, I'm going to tell you to walk right back out. That phone does not belong in my kitchen. That is you do not bring your phone to the kitchen table or the kitchen counter or the refrigerator. And I'm really strict on that. But we need to, as families, look for places that you can have a tech-free zone where nobody can bring a device in there. And I don't think I have it in there, but I do believe that there is a lot of research out there that shows we shouldn't probably have media devices in kids' bedrooms, probably adults' bedrooms as well, because it just leads to such disassociation and no attachment. So having a tech-free zone. One of the things, I don't know how many of you went to the Maloof Foundation's internet safety. I found one that I had heard most of the information and was well aware of it except for one, and that is to have likes on law enforcement. We're still seeing a lot of cases where people are meeting through social media, especially our youth, and we have it even here in our valley where people meet through social media. And we have people that are groomed. And I really liked the recommendation to have your kids or yourself like the local law enforcement agencies, because if they get on there and they see that local law enforcement is part of your profile, they tend to go, oh wait, that person, or the FBI, they steer away from people that, if you like the FBI and the local law enforcement, you're going to probably be a local law enforcement pro person. So I thought that was really interesting. So I liked Logan City Police Department on my Facebook page. No screens in bedrooms, and eliminate how many monitors or devices are in the home. I want to say that the average home has 4 TVs in it now, and that our smart TVs are internet programmed. I can tell you I don't know how to turn my TV on at home, so I don't watch TV. But I know that screens in bedrooms probably aren't the greatest thing. Know the value of face-to-face communication and talk to your kids about that and talk to your families about that. One of the things that I thought was really interesting was to unfollow. You don't have to unfriend, but on Facebook, for example, you can follow people, but you can unfollow them so you don't have anything show up on your social media site. So I went through, I don't know, last week, and I couldn't sleep a couple of nights, so I unfollowed every single person except for my husband, and my 2 daughters, because my older 2 kids don't have anything. And it's been interesting because I never got back on Facebook again in the last 2 weeks because, well, there's nothing on there to look at. So I just thought I would try it and see what happened. And it's been really interesting. I just thought, okay, I'll try this. So that's something that you can look at doing. Unfollow. You don't have to unfriend them, but you can unfollow and then go look at their sites when you want to look at something. Assessment for addiction, CBT, seems to be the most beneficial treatment. And then consider a detox. If your family is struggling, or you're struggling, or you have family members that are struggling, take a detox. Say, you know what? I'm going to take 10 days, and I'm not going to have any social media, gaming, nothing. If there's an emergency, somebody can call me on the phone. And see what happens if you have a 10-day detox, or a 20-day detox, or 30-day detox with no screen time. When I tried to do that, and I thought, I'm going to try this on Facebook and see what it's like. I don't know how to use my Instagram. I have one. My kids set it up for me, but I don't know how to post anything, so that doesn't really count. But my Facebook, I haven't really looked at anything since that happened because there's literally nothing showing up on my Facebook. If there's bullying, please report it to police. I just want to close with the idea that we have families that are in crisis today in our own communities. We have a lot of families that are hurting, and we have a lot of people that are hurting. And if we can maybe take a step back and help them with some of this, and in our own families, if we have people that are struggling, and we can say, you know what, we'll do this with you. And I've actually told a couple of kids that have come to me, I will do this with you. I'll take 10 days off and put away my phone and only have it for emergencies. If we do that, perhaps maybe we'll have better connections. And if we get up every day and we say, how am I going to connect with people? Perhaps that you'll touch somebody's life that needs it that day. And I just wanted to thank you for the opportunity to come and talk about social media and gaming, the effects that they're having on their families. But I know that if we work together and we continue working, we'll be able to improve this issue that's affecting people everywhere. Thank you.